Let's stay on wide receivers because there's another topic I want to get into on wide receivers. I just mentioned it. I kind of referenced it. DeAndre Hopkins is on the market. And unlike Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton, where Denver's saying, we want a number one pick, and they're not getting a number one for either of those guys because Jerry Jeudy hasn't done it long enough. He hasn't been healthy long enough. They're going to get probably a second round pick if they move him at all. They might not move him because they want a first. But the Cardinals asked for a high price initially for DeAndre Hopkins. But now, from what I'm reading this morning, New England might be out of it. But a lot of the thinking is they're going to get what the Cowboys paid for Brandon Cooks, which is like a 5th round pick and a 6th round pick in the next 2 drafts, not even in the same draft, a 5th and a 6th over 2 drafts. That is an incredible steal for DeAndre Hopkins. Now he's got a big money contract. You'd have to renegotiate it, but he only played 9 games last year, partly due to the PED suspension, but he had 64 receptions in those 9 games for 717 yards. That's 121 reception pace over a full season.
So What's the yards per catch? What is
it? What is the yard per catch for 64 for 717? It's
10.9.
Yeah,
11.
I was going to say 10.8. I don't know. I was going to say 10.
And that's the problem with DeAndre Hopkins. He's old. He doesn't scare anybody vertically anymore.
He is not a downfield threat, but I mean, you're still talking about a guy who is on pace for $27
million for a guy that's, giving me a little bit of Larry Fitzgerald end of his career. He's going to catch 100 passes for 1,000 yards vibes.
I don't know. I mean, so you're not a Hopkins guy anymore.
Not anymore. Yes. Like 3 years ago when the Cardinals traded for him, 100%, you could have argued at that time he was maybe the best receiver in the sport. I don't think he's the same player. I think the stats are a little bit misleading. I think he's lost a step. And Larry, actually, speaking of the two players, it's funny you brought up Brandon Cooks. I looked at the Brandon Cooks trade and thought, Larry, oh, damn, like, I wouldn't have minded the 49ers making that move. Like, Brandon Cooks' contract isn't nearly as bad as DeAndre Hopkins. I don't know if it's that far of a difference between the two players at this point. And Brandon Cooks, also, only a 5th and 6th round pick. I don't know how you looked at that situation, but when you brought up the Brandon Cooks now, I thought that's what you were going to ask me originally. Like, hey, should they have made a move on that? And I was ready to be like, yeah, that's one move I actually would have thought of and made for that if I was them. Yeah.
DeAndre Hopkins, 11.2 per reception this year, 13.6 per reception last year, 12.2 the year before that. He's had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 1,100 plus yard seasons. The last 2, he's been either dinged up or suspended. 9 games this last year, 10 the year before that. So you wouldn't be interested in DeAndre Hopkins. I mean,
not at that number. No way.
At that contract number or that trade number.
Right.
The contract.
No, the trade actually, Larry, come on. If he was making $10 million, we would both say 100%, even if we think he's declining. He's making $27 million a year, right?
Approximately. I think he's probably got 3 good years left in him. He's only 30. I'm not saying he's a fit for the Niners. The Niners have Debo. The Niners have Ayuk. The Niners are loaded at wide receiver. They might not even need to go wide receiver at all, let alone go get a top-tier guy and, break their budget. But, man, I'll say this. I don't want to see DeAndre Hopkins on any of the best teams. I don't want to see him on Kansas City. I don't want to see him on Philadelphia.
I agree with you, Larry. And
I definitely wouldn't want to go up against him.
I'm not saying he's old in the sense that I think he's completely washed. Like, he still put up numbers this year, and I agree with you. I think he has 2-3 more years of putting up numbers. But the impact of DeAndre Hopkins' numbers are not the same as 2 or 3 years ago to me. He's definitely lost a step. And when he's making $27 million, you're looking for the impact of 2 or 3 years ago. You're not looking for DeAndre Hopkins, who's, in my opinion, probably a top 15-ish receiver in the NFL. I'm not taking him over Tyreek Hill or Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson or Devontae Adams. There's a lot of names I would say I would take over DeAndre Hopkins.
He's still, though, the combination of size, leaping ability, ball skills. I mean, I would hate to have to go up against I would hate to
Strength.
see him in Kansas City. Let's just say that.
Oh, there's so many players we would say that about though, because
But I
I
mean,
feel like
he's
that
one of the top.
situation that elevates them, right? So like I agree with you, but then if you throw DeAndre Hopkins in Kansas City, because I've just spent the last 2 minutes telling you I think DeAndre Hopkins is not the same player. If you throw him in Kansas City with Mahomes and Kelsey, he's gonna be putting up numbers upon numbers. And I still would say he's not the same player, but the numbers would be insane, man.
I
I'm
hate
with
to see
you
him in
on that
Detroit.
too.
Hate to see him in Detroit with Amon-Ra St. Brown
And
and
JMO.
Jameson Williams. I'd hate to see him in those places. Kansas City, Philadelphia. But if he leaves the division, that's fine with me. But DeAndre Hopkins, when I heard that you could get him for a 5th and a 6th, I thought, wow, if there's a team that has cap room, man, that's a gift. You can get a pretty damn good player there for a 5th or a 6th.